Well, luckily that merchant seemed to be fairly friendly to new adventures, and good thing I had the coin to cover what he asked me for. Hmm, hair's a little odd, but I'll stuff it under this helmet for now. Never had a beard before. Why is every inch of my body blue? Alright, here goes nothing. Now, the first thing I should do is find some books that tell me more about where I ended up. Oh, hello. Uh, pardon me, I'm just a little lost. Well, that place was fairly empty. Must be a new house. Ah, that looks promising. And look, we found a book. Well, how about we read by the fire? There seems to be a hand-scrawled note in this one. It has been 500 years since the Deicide War severed the connection between the people and their gods. The Ravaging Lord pushed nations across Terminus to near extinction before the Dragon King himself appeared and brought an end to the bloodshed. Now the denizens of Terminus must uncover the mysteries of their past and unlock the silenced power of their gods. For war will come again, and this time the dragons won't be there to save us. Sounds like the place I just came from in a way. Reminds me a little of the Tale of the Ancients. Now, this book seems to be called On the Age of Chaos. There's some notes scrawled throughout, and I'll try my best to understand this language. It's coming in like little bits and pieces, but I can barely just make this out. With the second era of collisions, starting in the spring of 450, the Age of Chaos officially began. Nearly on top of each other came the Mir of Isul, hereafter referred to as Darkmere, near the ogres of Broken Maw, in what would become the continent of Rainfall, and the Archai of Roa to the south, in the realm of White Thaw, and nearest to the dwarves in Kadasa. White Thaw. Hope I can get to explore that one day. And what would become the first fruits of their peculiar, distant rivalry. Both the Darkmere and the Archai lay claim to arriving prior to the other, though it has never been dutifully determined. And let not either sway you, it has. The following cursed frost winter of 459 saw the humans of vast Demeth planted against the Rhone mountains of Kingsreach, mercifully close to the elves and Faethel. These were altogether the original Sacred Six, though the title was some time in coming. In the doomful year of 470, the tremors of the Age of Chaos broke through the surface, plainly named the Year of Outbreak, and the pregnant inertia of the approaching Deicide War came full term when the Revenant erupted from the Saith and overwhelmed the Ginto post on Olam's Hill. This they were named the Bakran, or Black Flame. Aside from the gross magnitude of their numbers, an attribute that would come to define their reckless and relentless methods of warfare, the despotic lord revealed a shrewd and devious act of cunning. For the pantheons of the foreign nation had evil members whose appetite for iniquity was starved by the celestial boundary. Having benefited from dissension himself, the Ravaging Lord set a unique card before the near-dormant immortals, enticing them to a high mortal status in exchange for rule, ruin, and revenge. This recruitment seduced to his sides a few fallen deities, most notably Asari, he who rages, of the humans, and the dead heiress, Hathus, of the Archai. With these mortal but immensely powerful warlords he infused into his newly formed and massive army, the Ravaging Lord turned his eyes to Terminus at large. In the subsequent years, Kinosai, 471, and the lost Sidrith, 472, fell under their storm. while forces such as the Sidrith Vespers in 472 and the Earth Mages of Majiki in 473, allied with the emerging military titan. But a strange fuel burned within their ruler of the Revenant, and as soon as his might was great enough to be divided, he broke it into 3 armies, one for each continent of the Sacred Six. Osari was to lead the assault on Kingsreach. Haethys would attack out of the snows of the White Thaw, and the ravaging lord himself would strike upon Rainfall, though this was not yet its namesake. Interesting. Yet neither the Remnant nor the Six had been idle during this time. In fact, the former had managed a deft campaign of sabotage and divisionary combat against their heinous brethren, most successfully in the critical years of 475. This severed 2 ends of vital importance. First, the obvious benefit of forestalling the Revenant and frustrating their otherwise ravenous advance. But secondly, these tactics cast a fog of war over the delicate union that was forming at the insistence of the Remnant and between the Six. At the summit of Vesu, a mist-soaked island in the midst of the 2 converging oceans that nearly disappears for months at a time, the breath of consequence behind the Revenant threat was unfolded to the leadership of each attending race. It was from this historic council that decision to undertake the Sanctum Edict was made, for the Ginto carried these many years of belief that Itero's power and vision were so great he would indeed turn the world to darkness as he had prophesied. But before her sacrifice, the patient divination of Ganavi had peered even farther behind his furious gaze, and perceived a moment in the midnight of despair, when the flooding tide of battle would break beneath the sons of Terminus. This cryptic impartation was not at first enough to bring the Six into one accord, but after days of fervent deliberations, each member planted their heraldry of their people in the crimson sands of Vesu, swearing fealty against the Revenant until the tide consumes or the sun avails. Therefore did each pairing begin immediate preparations. The burning sanctum would be constructed in the petrified forest of Kakelthar. The silent sanctum nestled between a natural choke point and the mountain roans. The frozen sanctum, buried in the storm drifts of Tenebrous tundra, each megalithic hulk was conceived with the aim of housing the races for as long as necessary, once they had bled as much attrition out of the Revenant and High Mortal armies as possible. In short, coffins to outlast the night. Thus in 481, the Deicide War, or War of Gods, came of age in Terminus. After years of smaller conflicts that felled countless nations, cities and people, some forcibly joined with the Revenant, others devoured into extinction, the direct assaults on the 3 continents of the Six officially consummated in total war. The defense of each was long-suffering, grinding, and acknowledged to be futile. For, aside from Kazas, there was no equal to the High Mortals on the field of battle, and certainly no accounting for the massive Revenant and their allies. What is clear is that Haethys fared the worst, and found the teeth of Tenebrous difficult to overcome by itself. At Vesus, Kazas was asked, "But what natural defense shall the frozen sanctum have?" To which he famously replied, "Tenebrous, and Tenebrous alone." The Archaean dwarves waged a choreographed campaign of elusiveness in shrewd tandem, denying the dead heiress an open field to fit with her numerical advantage. The effectiveness was great. Enraged, Haethys was finally given an opportunity when word came that the frozen sanctum itself was located amidst the blinding squalls. At this news, she ordered the Magan key create columns of infernal black flame to burn constantly, slowly encroaching upon the refuge from which each side of Tenebris. This forced the dwarves and Arkai to face a traditional battle, which they deeply preferred but could not endure, to the degree of their War of Shadow. Eventually the sanctum was entered by nearly all. Kingsreach did not fare as well. The island had only the ruins as natural defense, and while both the humans and elves made their hold around and on it respectfully, there was little choice but to meet Osari's vast forces on the field of battle. Assistance in this came from Moskag warriors and the Elvoni giants, as well as the enigmatic assassins of the Red Raven. That's a name to remember. But despite their valor, beautiful Havensong became the last bulwark of defense, with the silent sanctum hidden in the ruins behind. In perhaps the most mournful episode of the entire war, Havensong fell along with the human king Amensal, and the betrayer Osari demanded the entire city be wiped from the plain and carried off. Halting his army from any pursuit into the ruins, Osari personally verified that every last timber, stone, and hinge was removed from the scorched landscape and dropped off the cliffs into the sea, miles away. This took 3 days, and it was not until the effort was finished did he march on the sanctum. Rainfall hosted the most brutal fighting. At first, there was something of a valiant return to victory for the ogres. The legendary army of Broken Maw attacked the Revenant in their own camps as they marshaled on the banks of the frigid north. After this ambush, the Darkmere waited patiently beneath the icy surface for an armada of Revenant transports and set upon them with murderous glee, sinking, burning, and climbing on the decks of the silent convoy as it passed through the night. So fierce was their zeal that the ogres assembled on the shorelines, expecting some ships to pass through, and watched in astonishment until their allies finished the fight. Not a ship survived. It seemed an easy victory, under which normal terms would have perhaps granted these two members a total triumph, which they likely would not have announced to the remaining 4. Yet, this was the army of the Ravaging Lord, and the only terms were his own. He unbound ancient monsters of the deep against the Darkmere, and soon their unparalleled advantage was forfeit. According to the ogres, he enticed the hounds of Wosche to assault the Broken Maw from the north, while a Revenant force marched upon from the desert for Kaga in the south. The Wosche vehemently refute this account, which became the initiator of the 7th and 12th war between the two nations. Unable to defend the twin, or lone assaults, the ogres withdrew across Rainfall to Kalkalhar and the Burning Sanctum. Thus, Etero's long-standing prophecy was becoming manifest with each scorching victory. In 484, Heavensong fell. Rel Sirin of the Arkai was slain after sealing himself outside the door of the frozen sanctum, and the Ravaging Lord found a means to stop the magma moat flowing around the burning sanctum. It seemed that midnight was drawing nigh, yet the sons of Gannavi's vision would rise, and with them came a morning which broke the Revenant into utter chaos. These 6 sons of Turbinus were warriors of godlike power in physical might and arcane discipline, one from each pantheon of the sacred, more commonly called war wizards. They are the most easily described as high mortal beings of nearly purely supernatural ability. I confess their existence is contested by some today. So strange is their origin and decisiveness was their merit. With no warning of any kind, the dual terrors set upon the revenant high mortals with furious precision. Hathis fled before her assailants, and is since so rarely seen she is thought perished. True to his namesake, Osari raged in the ferocity and managed to wound one of the war wizards. But his might could not overcome the relentless heroes, and he fell dead on the very earth he had wiped Havensong from, as if he had merely prepared his own grave. The ravaging lord himself was not so easily countered. In a turn that should have given the six great pause, he chose not to face the war wizard, smiting loose his grip on Rainfall. While his twin armies on Kingsreach and Whitethaw were reeling, he withdrew to the volcanic mount Kadruhor in the north. Now utterly leaderless, the Revenant and their allies were chased off each continent, save for the Lord and his armies teeming in the volcanic foundry. In these conflicts of Vendir, the young heir to Amanthal's throne showed himself a leader of battlefront fearlessness. In 485, he and Kazas led the armies of the Six, and with the 6 sons of Terminus they marched on Kadruhor as one host, intent on extinguishing the black flame forever. Yet, in even this short time, the ravaging lord had grown in power and depravity. Too slowly it was understood that he cared not who survived, setting loose rivers of molten ore across the jagged terrains of Kadruhor. Once the armies had entered it, the forces of the Six were divided and trapped, easily ensnared by the expansive Revenant. Yet, their supernatural fervency, 2 of the war wizards moved directly to the ravaging lord, knowing his death would avail all threats. But after a furious melee, one lay dead, while the second was in desperate peril. Yet these were not all the mighty warriors to arrive that day of days. Suddenly, the earth shook, and one side of the volcano burst forth in thunder and spray. Out from the rupture flew Rai Kafiros, the rain-born dragon, whose dominion was over this very continent. Setting herself between the ravaging lord and the sun, she clutched the pillar of Ka, the tower in the middle of the battlefield, and roared a declaration. It should be known that these pillars are believed to be the signifier of rain-born authority on each continent, for there is one to each major realm. Rai Kafiros blew thick flames over the 2 armies without regard for division. Her fury was awesome, yet before she could face either warrior, the ravaging king made his final move. With every malevolent fiber of strength, he impaled the head of the beast upon the pillar Ka, and even as she loosed bellow of fire, this moment was only surpassed by the next, to which I relent my narration in favor of an actual witness, the human signal-bearer, Marthos Borsamir. After this, an even more deafening roar erupted, shaking the foundations of the planet and silencing the entire war on all of its lingering fronts. In this quiet, only the immeasurable wings of yet one more beast were heard, as they dipped below the ceiling of clouds that hazed over the battlefield, miles above us. This was the Dragon King, Rock Nilthamos. In a flash, his monstrous head pierced the cloud of storm and ash. He crushed the ravaging lord in his mouth, but gently enough to flip his pierced body into the air, incinerating it with a blast of molten flame. Roknir lifted his wings but once, and the entire veil of clouds dispersed. His size was peerless, yet his form and color were majestic beyond compare. I knew him to be a king of beasts, but there I saw it. His claw dug into the peaks of the mountain range, and it dawned with clarity that he was about to act further. Even as our armies attempted to flee, The Dragon King drew in a massive breath to scorch all he surveyed in flame. Yet there was a crack and roll of thunder across the sky. A small glint catches in the pool of Rochnil Thamos' eye, and the colossal dragon hesitates. Faster than his lid can blink, a creature like no other I had seen, though small in comparison, with one hand closed over the mouth of the Dragon King. There was a howl from one corner of the battlefield, but I could not tear my eye away from the sight above. Hovering thousands of feet in the air, it speaks. "Blood for blood, King. There is no breach." The Dragon King's growl reverberated as he replied in kind. "Blood for grace, emissary. Yet in the future, there will be only blood." Drawing the clouds over his ascent, Rochnil Thamos soared into the skies, cast one shadow over all the scattered armies, and forever disappeared. The creature that stopped his anger and saved all of us was never seen again. Such was the end of the Deicide War. Well, I do love to hunt some dragons, and the dragons of this realm sound mighty ferocious. In this way, I will call myself Wormbait. If you'd like to see more lore videos from me in the future, or have some constructive criticism for me, please leave a comment below. It really helps me in deciding what kind of content I'll be creating for the foreseeable future of Pantheon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. If you'd like to take supporting me a step further, please consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. Patreon tiers include your name being a part of the outro credits like you see now, and being given a shout out during them. I also stream live almost daily on twitch.tv/SirWormbait. Hope to catch you there.